Okay, so we've gone over the Greenskin update. We've gone over the new units for the Greenskins and for the High Elves. But there's a new thing that I want to talk about that I don't think a lot of people are really going to focus on. And that is the update to the High Elves. Now this is going to extend to a rework of the influence system. Not so much as how influence is spent, but how you gain influence, making it less of a cumbersome system. Also, there's been some tweaks to Teclis, Alarielle, and Alith Anar. So in this video today, we're going to quickly go over some of those tweaks to character traits, to buildings, to the way that some of the agents' actions work, and then go into Teclis, Alarielle, and Alith Anar, and how their changes have been made to their campaigns, as well as to their faction effects. So this should be a pretty quick little video, but I did want to kind of highlight these because I think they're very important. It does make for a more fluid and easy High Elf playstyle. So we're going to be jumping around to a lot of characters, and if you want to know more about Eltharian's campaign, don't worry, I'm going to be doing my Is It Right For You campaign where I do a quick overview of Eltharian. But since this is the new DLC, we'll start with Eltharian's character. We'll jump over to Tyrion's real fast, Alarielle, Teclis, and then Alith Anar. So some of the biggest changes with this influence is the way that the level 60 traits work. And these perks have always been a pretty big linchpin of your heroes and your lords when you're recruiting those 60 influence level lords and heroes. Now, if I come down here to Entrepreneur, you'll take a look at tax rate, it gives 3%, and income from all buildings is plus 15%. This has been brought down from a plus 30%. Now, that is a little bit of a nerf here, but the way that this was supposed to be, or the way this was communicated to us, is that a lot of the more broken ones like Entrepreneur and Administrator have been kind of brought back in their power scale. But a lot of the combat mechanic ones have been increased, or at least again brought back a little bit more in line with their power scale. Jumping over here to Incendiary. And I'm going to talk about this one for a little bit longer too. It's got melee attack, defense 10, 100% weapon strength, and enable flaming attacks. Its charge bonus for mages used to be 120. This is the Archmage, so maybe it's just different because it's the Archmage, but it is now 100. So one thing you should look for Incendiary is putting it on your Archmage, or well, ideally your Mage of Fire. Because now with the new patch, and the new conventions coming with this DLC, your High Elf Mage of Fire, or Lore Fire, can ride a Sun Dragon, just like the Dragon Mages of 8th edition. So I unfortunately don't have any in this playthrough right now, but they will populate as we play through the game, of course. So if you can, try and get a hold of one of those, because they will make for a disgustingly strong character. You're looking at a huge increase. 100% weapon strength increase on a dragon is immense. So try to get a hold of one of those if you can. Administrator as well has been kind of brought in line a little bit here. As you can see, it is 15%, which is down just a little bit from what it used to be at 30%. So we're seeing a big cut in half there on the construction cost, and the construction time is down 10% from 30. They were both 30%. But if I take a look over here at Princes, and I look at, actually I think Dragon World is pretty normal. It's Ardent. Ardent now grants you Frenzy. It didn't before. It just gave you the upkeep reduction and the range increase. So some of the ones that actually give you bonuses to your Lord have been made more powerful. So it should actually get a better benefit. And it's supposed to kind of create a situation where you're not just simply focusing on one or two of the exact same Lords, Princes, Archmages, and Nobles, so on and so forth throughout your entire playthrough. You kind of have a good diversity because they now have a lot more application across the board. But now that we've gone through the level 60 influence traits, how do you get influence now? It's been overhauled. So let's jump over here to the building browser. We're going to go over here to the embassy. The embassy now grants you 2 influence per turn. So that alone, a very huge benefit. And now, if we go over here to the Noble, and I go over to Secure Influence, I can see that it says gains 3 influence per 5 turns, per turn for 5 turns. It used to just be you got 1 lump sum. So they've overhauled the way that you now acquire influence through this ability. It's no longer just that 1 lump sum. You can actually have a more steady set of income of influence over time, which I actually think is a very huge benefit here. This is something that I think we're kind of lacking when it came to influence. It's getting it in a reliable way. But there's another way you can also get influence, and that extends to combat. So let's take Eltharion here, jump him into this, and we'll auto-resolve this little action. That's right, judo chop that guy. So ransom captives now gives me an influence per turn for 5 turns. So this is intended to make the constant use of agent actions less necessary for the optimal influence generation. That's like verbatim out of the notes that they've given us. And this is supposed to kind of create a situation, like I said, where you can use Intrigue and Court a little bit more fluidly, and you don't feel so bound by the amount of influence that you have at the given time. Because influence, and when you take a look at it from a normal High Elf standpoint, you're going to use it to recruit your lords, or you're going to deal with campaign issues or little tiny events that pop up. Now, with it being more abundant, you can use it with Intrigue and Court, and it makes Intrigue and Court, I'd say, a little more powerful. I still would prefer an overhaul to Intrigue and Court and actually make it a little bit more interesting, but I'll take this in the meantime for a hopeful overhaul. Let's jump over to Tyrion real quick and take a look at the Court of the Phoenix King. And if you remember before this DLC, the Court of the Phoenix King was a little lackluster when it came to influence. It just simply gave you 1 influence per turn, which is really not that cool. But now it'll reduce the influence cost for Intrigue at Court actions by 10%, further increasing the power of Intrigue at Court. Again, like I said, I would much prefer an Intrigue at Court overhaul and a complete revamp of the system, but in the meantime, making it so that it actually has a lower barrier of entry and it costs less to do things means that it, for the most part, can be more applicable to my use in my High Elf campaigns, rather than me just going, I don't want to do that. So now let's jump over to Teclis, then Alarielle and Alith Anar to take a look at their differences now with their campaign effects and what's new to their whole systems. So Teclis' faction effects have gotten, I think, a really nice touch here. Let's bring up the High Lore Master, the Order of Lore Masters faction effects, and we'll see his diplomatic relations bonuses now apply a +10 with men, High Elves, Wood Elves, Lizardmen, and Dwarfs. This kind of plays in line well with a lot of the additions to the Vortex campaign. Now that men are actually in the Vortex campaign, this is going to give him that benefit. Also, this applies to Mortal Empires. This whole faction effect is both Vortex and Mortal Empires. There's only one thing I'm going to mention that is Mortal Empires exclusive. But in addition, we also have a construction cost reduction by 25% for mage buildings. That has been, I think it was not as much, or it's been added and tweaked. The recruitment rank for Lore Masters of Hoeth, Mages, and Archmages is now +5. It used to just be Mages. So now you get really strong Lore Masters, and now you get new and strong Archmages with Teclis. And lastly, recruitment cost -25% for Sword Masters of Hoeth and Phoenix units. Again, kind of playing heavily into the motif that Teclis is the Lord dedicated most to Sword Masters and to Phoenix unit. In addition to, we also get a Lore Master of Hoeth in both the Vortex and the Mortal Empires campaign. Now this is a Vortex campaign, but if you were to start a campaign with Teclis, he would start at war with Clan Fester. So that has been added into your Mortal Empires playthroughs. And the last little thing here for Teclis is not small by any stretch of the imagination. It is this little ditty. He now can get an Arcane Phoenix at rank 18, making him just a disgusting powerhouse of destruction up in the air. So hopefully when we look at this from a competitive standpoint in multiplayer, people will start to bring Teclis now over Alarielle in some matchups, because Alarielle is still a very strong lady of the High Elves, but Teclis now has a very strong mount that he can do a lot of damage with the addition of, well, not the addition of, in addition to his Sword of Teclis. Because if we look at the Sword of Teclis, it also increases his ability to do a lot of damage. So we should hopefully see these two used in a lot of multiplayer matches, but I think in the campaign it's going to make for a lot of fun, especially with his Potion of Charoi. That's going to help give him damage resistance and a huge buff to his health. Let's jump on over to Alarielle, since we mentioned her just a little bit ago. Looking at Alarielle, she also got some faction effects overhauling here. Let's jump here into the Carnival of the Everqueen. Everything for the most part is the same. Invocation of Lilith, greater invocation of Aisha, which we'll talk about just a little bit, hero capacity, but here's the big one. Influence cost minus 25% for Intrigue at court actions. This is obviously going to stack up if you get things like the Court of the Phoenix King giving a massive minus 35% for Intrigue at court. Again, like I said before, broken record, but it reduces that barrier with the Intrigue at court and makes it a little bit more viable. Now, in addition to that, you know that she also has her lovely ability, Power of Nature. So whenever she visits a city or provincial capital or province, she gives this ability here called the Power of Nature. Now it gives public order, winds of magic, growth, and untainted. But now it also grants 1 influence per turn for 9 turns. So it's going to grant you 10 influence. And if I go and visit each one of these starting locations quickly in my opening portions of my turn, over the course of 10, 15 turns, it's going to generate a total of 30 influence for me. So it's way easier to get influence now, especially with Alarielle, who can just simply walk from location to location. So you get a really great, essentially an influence battery in this character. Now, for the rights, we've gotten 2 different overhauls here. The Invocation of Lilith has been completely changed. Magic item drop chance is now 50%. A cooldown minus 30% to all spells, and then the army ability Channeling Spire, which is improved. It's going to improve power recharge rate and increase power reserves. So it's a very nice ability here to really, really overhaul your casting and just drop tons of bombs on folk when it comes to just using all spells at your disposal. Now, the other thing here is the Greater Invocation of Aisha. There's really not much of a difference here between the normal Invocation of Aisha and the Greater Invocation of Aisha. The biggest one is the passive ability Regeneration for Tree Spirit units. You can get them to start regenerating and getting a lot more health, as well as the existing effects from the Greater Invocation. So we really see Alarielle kind of coming online as a much bigger influence battery, like I said, and even a way quicker access to Intrigue at court. Because as we know, her big faction mechanic is the Defender of Ulthuan. So her, I guess, focus is mainly uniting Ulthuan and making sure that it's not fractured or at war with each other and not filled with Dark Elf presence. So this allows her to do that by using Intrigue at court. And I think it plays very well into the kind of lore or the quote-unquote meta of the way Alarielle would be perceived. Now, the other little thing that has been done is over here with the Blood Voyage. So Blood Voyage armies now receive army-wide frenzy. So that's pretty important to know, though. But if Harganeth is an AI faction, so saying I'm not doing a co-op campaign or anything like that, only the Lord of a Blood Voyage army will be unbreakable, not the entire army. So that sentence was probably very scary to begin with, because you're like, Jesus, a whole army that's unbreakable and frenzy? No thanks. Now it's simply that the army's lord is unbreakable and the entire army has frenzy. So it is going to make it a little bit scarier to deal with, but pretty much all you need to do is kill that lord anyway, and the army should kind of capitulate pretty quickly. And our last little thing, we'll jump over to Alith Anar, and his is a very quick one. And as for Alith Anar, the only thing that he gets is that the Hand of the Shadow Crown can now search ruins for you. That can be pretty advantageous if you're trying to move from one location to another and discovering some of the Skaven plight across the land here, especially where Alith Anar is placed on the map. There's quite a lot of Skaven. So hopefully this gives you a better idea of what's been added and changed to the High Elves outside of their amazing DLC units and both Imric and Eltharion, as well as the Archmages. I think that this influence overhaul is a much needed step in the right direction for the High Elves, but I still think that there's more to be done to the Intrigue court system to make it a little bit more, well, intriguing for High Elf players. Right now, I think that reducing its overall effect on your influence income is a good first initial step, but there's still a little bit more that needs to be done. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below what you think could be done to the Intrigue and court system to make it a lot more fun, or at least more viable for the High Elf player to constantly be using. And also, we'll be covering some additional campaign overviews of all of the new lords added to the game in the coming days. If you have not picked up the Warden and the Paunch DLC yet, you can purchase it from my Fanatical link in the comment below. You will get a Steam key, so it's a great way to support the channel at a pretty minimally invasive approach to yourself. But as always, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun action, and have a good one, and take care.